Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Superhero Deep Dive. As always, I am your host, Jason. I have a really cool episode scheduled for today. I'm excited to share it with you because it was one of my favorite heroes of the 90s, and it was someone I felt that was supposed to be more than he is. So let me get my disclaimers out of the way, and we will get into it. So the information is pulled from different sources across the internet and may or may not be completely complete, but they do give a really good insight on the current superhero. You can catch me every Tuesday and Thursday throughout the day on Outworld Fleet Radio. Their website is outworldfleetradio.online. You can catch me on Instagram and X under Super Deep Dive, where I post superhero memes daily. You can also email me directly at b4itall at yahoo.com. I'm on TikTok where I post superhero memes daily under Superhero Deep Dive, and I am on YouTube under Superhero Deep Dive. If you find me on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I love hearing conversations about superheroes. I love getting your requests for future episodes, fun facts I may have missed, things that you would do differently with the hero, like if you didn't necessarily agree to my ideas, or if you had other ideas of your own. I am 100% about it, and I would love to hear about it. So please like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. All right, so superhero fun fact. In Marvel's 2010 comic series S.H.I.E.L.D., they began as the Brotherhood of the S.H.I.E.L.D. As time passed on, it began recruiting known figures in history such as Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton. So Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton were all members of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's probably safe to say Thomas Edison was a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, with all his inventions, whether they were taken or not. Nikola Tesla could have been a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a pretty cool aspect. It's a pretty cool intro into, I guess, that team or that group. All right, but I am covering Justice. You may also know him as Marvel Boy, or Vance Astro, or Major Victory. He's had multiple iterations, but he's still cool. And his real name is Vance Astrovic. He was born in Saugerties, New York, and he was visited as a teenager by an alternate time-traveling version of his future self, Major Vance Astro of the Guardians of the Galaxy, an astronaut who had volunteered for an experimental space flight and consequently been lost in space in cryogenic suspension for 1,000 years. The elder Vance Astro convinced his younger self not to become an astronaut, and in the process sparked the premature emergence of the younger Vance's telekinetic powers. Due to the I don't know how to pronounce this word I wrote. Due to the vagaries? Sure, okay. Due to the vagaries of time travel in the Marvel Universe, this did not actually create a paradox, but instead made the Guardians' future world into a parallel timeline, to which they later returned. Although Major Vance Astro had not had a chance to fully develop his psionic power in his time in NASA, the younger Astrovic now had the opportunity to hone his power. Astrovic soon became the costume crime fighter known as Marvel Boy. You may be thinking well, I've heard of Marvel Girl. Who is Marvel Boy? He was in the New Warriors, which we will touch on in a moment. Okay, but it's kind of interesting, right? He gets visited by his older self, and that triggers his powers. Now, after his powers developed, Vance's father, Arnold, began to physically abuse him for being different. Running away from home, Vance wound up supporting himself as a professional wrestler in the Unlimited Class Wrestling Federation, a circuit for superhuman competitors. While wrestling as Manglin' John Mahoney, he befriended Ben Grimm, also known as The Thing, who at the time was himself estranged from his family, the Fantastic Four. Eventually, Vance was convinced to return home with assurances from his parents that the abuse would stop. When Marvel Boy was rejected for membership in the Avengers by Captain America, he helped found a team of teenage superheroes called the New Warriors. Led by the new hero Night Thrasher, he had many intense times during this early period, such as a fight against the White Queen, her Hellions, and the immortal villain Gideon. At the same time, Vance developed friendships with the other warriors and a romantic relationship with teammate Firestar, who we did a deep dive on. She is awesome, and his powers increased both in strength and skill. However, his costume activities renewed Arnold Astrovic's prejudice towards Vance's powers. Both Vance and his mother suffered from Arnold's abusive behavior, and Vance instinctively protected himself with his powers only made things worse with tragic consequences. Now see, this is pretty cool because this was all done like in the 90s, where they were trying to be kind of gritty. They wanted to add a little bit of realism, but not too much. But they wanted to actually have issues in it, and they handled this one really cool. I can't wait to share it. Give me 1 second to take a sip. Sorry. Okay. So one night, Arnold Astrovic not only attacked a disadvantaged Vance, who was injured in a fight with Terex and further injured by Gideon, but struck his wife when she tried to intervene. In one burst of his ever-growing superpowers and pent-up emotion, Vance lashed out at his abusive father and unintentionally unalived him. Vance turned himself in and went to trial charged with first-degree murder and negligent homicide. So he owned up to it right away. He was defended by attorney Foggy Nelson, and the Thing was a character witness for Vance and helped establish the history of abuse that he had suffered, as did Vance's mother, Norma. Other testimony established the good he had done as a costumed hero and his increasing competence with his powers. However, the prosecuting attorney pursued the latter angle, using testimony from Firestar and cross-examination from Norma Astrovic, who's a mom, to establish that Vance could have used his powers to stop his father without lethal force. Finally, in her closing argument, the prosecutor drew a gun on Vance and fired, which was unknown to Vance at the time, a blank round. Instinctively, Vance not only disarmed her, but reacted so precisely that he contained the actual smoke from the gun, driving home the prosecution's case. Vance was acquitted of murder, but he was convicted of negligent homicide. As a result of the trial, Vance's secret identity became public knowledge. So this is crazy. This is crazy. Number one, it wouldn't make sense in a courtroom, only in comic books and TV and movies, but not in real life, that an attorney would bring a gun into a courtroom. Because they don't allow that stuff. So it wouldn't have happened. But the fact that they were doing this to prove a point that he did have control really spoke volumes. You know, like, I can't imagine the pain that he went through, and then having control, like you lose control. It's crazy. Oh, but anyways, Vance was sentenced to serve his time at the superhuman restraint facility known as the Vault. He was shown enjoying the occasional free walkabout on the long road trip to the Vault, joking and playing around with the officers. When his friends Firestar, Namorita, and Nova, which we did a thing on Namorita as well, and Nova's coming up, Nova arrived to free him, Vance protested, declaring he would serve his time. He also said that he was going to be paroled in 14 months, so they would see him again then. Firestar, even though trying to remain restrained, was very upset, and she recognized that Vance wanted to do what Vance wanted to do and came to terms with it. Now, I remember I had this comic. He went and he took on like 4 or 5 of the Vault's guardsmen, who all had like kind of like greenish looking Iron Man type armor. They were not as sophisticated as Iron Man's, but their job is to be the guard for supervillains that are put in the vault. He just takes them all out. And he's still beaten up. He's got a cast on his arm. Just takes them all out. Afterwards, they end up splitting beers. And he's like, yeah, this is cool. His friends come to save him. And he stops his friends. And he's like, no, I believe in the system. What I did could have been prevented. I have to be better. I'm going to do my time. So, his friends like rip the doors off the van. And he helps them put it back on and fix it. He is that guy. It's kind of awesome, that moral compass that he has. All right, but during let's see here. Yeah, during his stay on the vault, he was granted training periods with the guardsmen on duty, determined to hone his abilities to prevent another incident like his father's death. When a riot broke out over the perception of poor living conditions, Vance helped calm the riot by convincing the warden to allow the plant-based villain Terraformer, who was once part of the forces of nature, access to a plant. Despite the warden's fears that Terraformer would use it as an escape attempt, the villain simply enjoyed being with him. This calmed the other prisoners, and it was agreed that on a case-by-case basis, their living conditions could be examined to accommodate superhuman prisoners' unique needs. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, because he believes in the system so much that he puts the system first. Not like, oh man, we got to take these people down because they might hurt people. He recognized what the guy may need for rehabilitation and went from there. So it's pretty cool. But after his time in the vault, he adopted the codename Justice. He briefly went undercover working with Shinobi Shaw to spy on the activities of the so-called Young Hunt. The Young Hunt, I believe, was a game by certain supervillains that were they were young, they were kind of like bounty hunter upstart people. And they would try to hunt younger heroes and more inexperienced heroes for fun, and they would rack up points. I believe that's what it was. But when the Sphinx, a previous New Warriors foe, dispersed members of the team throughout history, Vance encountered his father as an adolescent and discovered that Arnold, his father, was actually a homosexual who was bullied into accepting a heterosexual lifestyle by his own abusive father. Understanding that his father was as much of a victim as he was, Vance attempted to change history by threatening his grandfather, but stopped when he realized that he was, in his own way, perpetuating the cycle of violence handed down from father to son. Though history remained unchanged, this new knowledge allowed Vance to make a measure of peace with the memory of his father. So that's pretty cool. I just can't get over this guy's moral compass. It's insane. I'm going to be saying it throughout the whole thing, and I'm sorry about that, but I loved this character when I was younger. He was so cool, and the more I'm understanding about him, the cooler he is. So, let's keep going. Justice spent some time in a leadership role with the New Warriors and talked about marriage with Firestar. However, when she learned that her microwave powers might render her infertile, such plans were endangered. A mystical incident had caused all those who were once Avengers to be targeted by creatures and monsters, and Vance and Angelica accompanied their friend Rage, who had been an Avenger at one point, to a meeting at Avengers Mansion. They willingly helped out in various ways before Morgan Le Fay attacked, altering reality. Vance and Angelica, who was Firestar, were caught up in the literal mystical mystical maelstrom, and were turned into superpowered enforcers under the command of Le Fay. However, several Avengers managed to break free of the control based on their deep belief in the team itself. Vance found himself coming to his senses despite never actually being an Avenger, a fact that surprised the remaining heroes, thus he joined the Resistance. After the threat of LeFay was ended and the two proved themselves by defeating Whirlwind on their own, they managed to become Avengers. Although he was thrilled to be living his lifelong dream of being an Avenger, Vance made some small rookie mistakes at first, stemming from a case of hero worship. We can't blame him for that. I mean, this is the kid's lifelong dream. He is in there with the big guys, you know? But anyways, however, he proved himself when he came up with a way to defeat the current plans of the current form or forms of the villain Ultron, despite a broken leg. Vance and Angelica then spent some time undercover investigating the Triune Understanding, a cult-like movement with seemingly good intentions but villainous leadership. The Triune Understanding also brought on 3D Man, who we recently did a deep dive with. I would love it if you guys check that out too. Alright, let's keep going. So after the House of M ended, Justice and Firestar were unaffected by the global depowerment of mutants and thus retained their powers. Vance's wish for more in their relationship as opposed to Firestar's wish for less, and this is because Vance was 22 at the time and Firestar was 19, so there was a little bit of an age difference, but it wasn't so much an age difference as that they were in different points in their lives, basically. But that ended their engagement and their relationship. Vance and former teammate Rage learned that people were hunting down former New Warriors members because of perceived blame for the deaths caused by Nitro in Stamford, Connecticut. Okay, now with this, there was a team of New Warriors held up by Speedball who we did a deep dive on. That was actually one of the first deep dives I did. They actually turned their team into almost like a reality show. So they went around and stopped villains, and they found out where some of these villains were hiding. They went to go take care of them, and Nitro literally blew himself up, which that's what he does. He blows himself up and then reforms later. So he blew himself up in a neighborhood and killed a bunch of people, and the New Warriors were blamed for it. So anyone associated with New Warriors was kind of just basically guilty by association. Let's see here. They both sought out the legal services of Jennifer Walters, who was She-Hulk, in protecting the allies of the New Warriors, as their identities were already publicly exposed. They eventually discovered that former New Warriors member Carlton LaFroige, Hindsight Lad, who was the very first superhero deep dive episode, I believe, was responsible for the persecution and exposure of their teammates, operating a website that was slowly outing the identities of the 20 or so remaining New Warriors. That's insane. For someone that sucked so bad, he did so much damage with that. Alright, but both Rage and Justice refused to go along with the proposed Superhuman Registration Act. This is further evidence when they joined Captain America's Secret Avengers during the Civil War as a result of the death of Bill Foster. After the Civil War, Justice was recruited by Iron Man to head the youth outreach arm of the Initiative superhero training program based at Camp Hammond. He is clearly unaware of some of the shadier aspects of the program and is growing increasingly irritated by the Initiative drill sergeant Gauntlet and his constant demeaning and disparaging remarks about the deceased New Warriors. During the investigation of former New Warrior members due to an attack upon Gauntlet, it was revealed to readers that Justice is currently secretly seeing Ultra Girl, a trainee with the Initiative and former New Warriors associate. Justice's personal investigation into the fate of Initiative recruit MVP opened his eyes to the morally ambiguous activities of the Initiative instituted by Camp Hammond director Henry Peter Gyrick. Gosh, I hate that name. Every time his name comes up, something bad happens. As a result, Justice apparently deserted from the Initiative to continue his investigation and recruited Ultra Girl, Rage, and other former New Warriors, Debris, and Slapsticks to his cause. After a clone of MVP goes rogue and leaves the Initiative with major casualties, Justice and these former New Warriors, along with the two surviving Scarlet Spiders, officially inform Iron Man of their intention to quit the initiative and act as Counterforce, a form of independent oversight for the program. As the group is all registered superhumans, Iron Man is unable to act against Justice's team unless they commit an illegal act. However, Ultra Girl decides to return to the initiative, apparently ending her relationship with Justice. You know, sometimes going against the grain is not for everyone, and that can definitely be a dividing point, so I get it. Now, during the Skrull invasion, Justice and Counterforce encounter Night Thrasher, who we did a deep dive on, at the old New Warriors, looking for a DNA sample to prove whether or not the Night Thrasher that died at Stanford was a Skrull imposter. Counterforce initially believes that Donnell is a Skrull due to his reluctance to reveal his identity, and comes into conflict with Donnell's New Warriors. When Donnell finally reveals his identity, the two teams join together to storm the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, where the deceased New Warriors' bodies are being held, and recover them. The corpse of the original Night Thrasher is proven to be of human composition, and the two teams bury the bodies outside the old base. When Ragnarok, a deranged clone of Thor, attacks Camp Hammond, oh man, Ragnarok was crazy. Think of like Thor with the Hulk rage. That's what he was. It was insane. But anyways, when Ragnarok attacked Camp Hammond, Counterforce, now calling themselves the New Warriors and boasting Night Thrasher as a member, arrived to help. During the fight, Ragnarok unalives one of the Scarlet Spiders and nearly gets Vance, who was saved by Ultra Girl. After the battle, Vance retrieves the corpse of the original MVP, seeking to give him a proper burial. However, their actions in exposing the duplicity to the public allowed Hammer director Norman Osborn to shut down Camp Hammond and reorganize the initiative, placing villains on initiative teams. The New Warriors rescued Gauntlet and Tigra from the Hood's gang and formed the Avengers Resistance. Things hit the tipping point for the Resistance when Osborn orchestrates a siege on Asgard by creating an incident similar to Stanford. Justice declares that while most of the initiative is busy with the siege, the Resistance will take down Camp Hammer in order to expose Osborn once and for all. Vance becomes one of the teaching staff of Avengers Academy alongside former Avenger teammates Hank Pym, Tigra, Quicksilver, and former New Warriors teammate Speedball. One of his students, Vale, has a secret crush on him until she finds out that he has renewed his relationship with Ultra Girl. His relationship with Ultra Girl is further complicated during the Avengers Academy prom night when Firestar appears. Oh man, that's the worst when you have like your ex-fiance show up. During the Outlawed storyline, Vance appears as a member of Cradle when a law is passed that forbids superheroes who are under the age of 21. So they kind of like, I don't know how they're going to forbid that, but that's what they did. So that is Justice or Vance Astrovic's story. I'm going to go into Vance Astro's story because he is so closely tied in. So if there's any overlap, I apologize. I want to make sure we get stuff in. But in the meantime, what do you guys think? This guy is awesome, right? Like, he's got a pretty cool power set, you know, your basic telekinetic. But man, like his constant work ethic, his moral compass, his willing to accept responsibility for something that was completely an accident. But it's, you know, it doesn't matter if it's an accident. It's something that, you know, he has been training for, and with more training, he feels like he could have prevented things. So, you know, like it's crazy. This guy's dedication. It is Captain America level, you know. But let's go into Vance Astro. This is the future version. Now, Vance Astro, who was still Astrovic, was born in Saugerties, New York, the only son of a small-town butcher, Arnold Astrovic, and his wife, Norma. Going into the U.S. Air Force at the age of 18, Astrovic, who changed his name to Astro when he was 21, became the youngest man to be accepted into the astronaut training program several years later. In 1988, Astro volunteered for the first crewed interstellar mission ever conducted by the United States called Project Starjump. His ship, Odysseus I, was not equipped for faster than light speed, hence the journey to Earth's nearest interstellar neighbor, a planet in the Alpha Centauri system, would take about 10 centuries. To protect him from aging, Astro was covered with the skin-preserving copper alloy, which was later upgraded with adamantium in the Guardians of the Galaxy series, but it was this copper alloy bodysuit, and his blood was transfused with a kind of preservative fluid. Astro was launched into space from the Houston airport in the fall of 1988. While on his way to Alpha Centauri, the ship automatically awoke him from a suspended animation in order for him to perform routine course adjustments. During the periods he was awake, sometimes for a year in duration, Astro eventually went insane from loneliness on several occasions, returning to a semblance of normality only after the ship automatically put him back in suspended animation again. During his long periods of sustained dreamlike activities, Astro's latent psionic powers emerged. By the time he arrived on Centauri 4, almost 1,000 years later, he had full control over his psychokinetic abilities. Upon arrival, Vance Astro learned that other humans had arrived at Centauri 4 centuries earlier, having developed a faster-than-light drive since the time he left. Now that sucks because he's supposed to be the first, like that was his mission, was to be the first. He trained hard so he could have that honor. And then they came up with the technology to go faster and they just went right by him. That sucks. That sucks. Okay. So, although they were unable to intercept his flight, the Centurion people welcomed him as a hero. Upset at having sacrificed his life on Earth for no purpose, Astro was determined to carry out the mission to categorize the plant life he was assigned a millennium ago, even though it would now be superfluous. While engaged in a geophysical survey, he encountered Yondu, one of the humanoid natives of the planet, who attacked him, but he stopped it. He kept this secret as it was illegal for his species to attack a colonist. When the alien Badoon launched an attack on Centauri 4, annihilating the human colony and methodically eradicating the natives, Astro and Yondu attempted to escape in Astro's ship. They were overtaken and transported to Earth, where the Badoon leader used a device to look through Astro's mind and see his origin. There, they escaped in the year 3007 AD and joined the other two survivors of Badoon's massacre. The last Jovian, Charlie 27, and the last Plutonian, Martin X, to form the Guardians of the Galaxy, with himself as the leader. After liberating Earth, the Guardians set out on a random course across the galaxy in the hopes of safeguarding freedom everywhere, and fight the Badoon conquest of Earth's solar system. It was later revealed Starhawk manipulated events to bring them together. Now, I know what you guys are saying, like these guys, like only Yondu was really in Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, Starhawk was there too, and Charlie 27 was one of the extra people, I believe, in the second movie. But the thing is, the comics had established Guardians of the Galaxy with almost a rotating lineup for years before the movies came out. So the movies were only one of the teams, but there have been many teams. It almost seems like every time they ran through a series, they formed a new team. So it's been kind of cool because it gives interesting stories under that same umbrella. Alright, let's keep going though. So 8 years later, Astro and the Guardians of the Galaxy time traveled to the 20th century and met the Defenders. The Guardians returned to 3015 AD with Starhawk and the Defenders to defeat a new Badoon invasion force. Later, Astro and the Guardians team with the time-traveling Thor. They battled Korvac and his Minions of Menace. That's such a bad name. Korvac and his Minions of Menace. It sounds like a 40s radio show. Like that comes on right after Dick Tracy. But Astro then traveled to the present alongside his fellow Guardians and assisted the Avengers in a battle against Korvac. Years later, on a trip to the present-day Marvel Universe, Astro encountered his younger self and convinced him not to join the Air Force. He also accidentally awoke the younger Vance's telekinetic powers, ensuring the divergence. The younger Vance Astrovic would later join the New Warriors, first as Marvel Boy, then as Justice, and eventually became a member of the Avengers for a short time. Because all of the Guardians of the Galaxy are honorary Avengers, Vance holds the distinction of being the only Avenger to appear twice in the roster, once as himself and once as Justice. After returning to his own time, Astro became involved in his teammates with his teammate Alita after she was freed from her physical merger with her ex-husband Starhawk. Astro went on a quest to find the lost shield of Captain America. He battled Taserface and the Stark during the quest and defeated the Stark. Then, after retrieving Captain America's shield, he was critically injured in a battle with a gang that based themselves on the Punisher. Vance was later healed by Krugar, Doctor Strange's former apprentice and the current Sorcerer Supreme, and was freed from his containment suit. He then adopted a costume similar to that of Captain America to go with the shield and took the name Major Victory. Shortly thereafter, Krugar's enchantment was removed and Vance began to age rapidly. He was saved by a symbiotic costume, seemingly of the same species as Venom. However, it was later determined that it was not actually a life form, but engineered to respond to the wearer's biological state. Oh, that's cool. Now this is why I believe in the 90s he was positioned to be like the next Captain America. They gave him so much. They gave him the morality that was rivaled only by Captain America. They gave him a cool power set. They gave him the shield in the future, but time travel is really it's a fairly common thing in comic books, so there was nothing to prevent him from coming back, or even just the current day Vance Astrovic inheriting a shield from a future Vance Astro. So, there's a lot there. But Vance, he is later discovered encased in ice on the asteroid Hydranus by the new Guardians of the Galaxy team leader Star-Lord. Astro confirms his identity to the band of aliens and later converses with Mantis at the Guardians' home base Nowhere. Mantis confirms to Star-Lord that Astro has been temporarily displaced. Or not temporarily, temporally displaced. The Guardians are then attacked by the Cardinals of the Universal Church of Truth. Vance later joins this incarnation of the Guardians of the Galaxy and helps to rescue Peter Quill from Blastar. He later joins Rocket Raccoon's team on their mission to stop the War of Kings. After Adam Warlock loses control and becomes Magus, Vance is killed when his shield is thrown back at him by Magus, opening his suit up and causing him to age rapidly. However, he is later seen to be alive, but in suspended animation and a prisoner of the Magus, along with Mantis, Phyla-Vell, Cosmo, and Gamora. He later breaks free with the other Guardians, including Phyla-Vell, apparently slain by the revived Thanos, reuniting with the other half of the team. After Thanos is incapacitated by Star-Lord, Major Victory and all the other Guardians reunite in Nowhere. It's also revealed during a council of the Guardians of all galaxies that reunites the Guardians of the whole multiverse that the Major Victory currently on Earth 616 is a time-displaced one from an alternate unidentified dimension. During this council, 3 other versions of Major Victory appears. One identical to the Earth 616 one, with the original uniform, another with the symbolic outfit of the 1994-1995 version, and finally another with the pre-symbiotic costume appearance and the Captain America themed uniform. Now when I say the symbiotic outfit, it's hard to explain. It's basically white and blue with like star fields on it, is the best way to describe it. But yeah, Vance later worked with the time-displaced Namorita to safeguard a mission into the Cancerverse, which is a realm threatening the known universe. That was a whole big storyline. I didn't want to get too much into Cancerverse because I just don't know enough about it. But that's his history. Like, that's all of their history. Pretty much. What an amazing hero. What an amazing hero. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, you can email me directly anytime at b4itall, so b4itall at yahoo.com. You can catch me on X and Instagram under Super Deep Dive. My DMs are always open. You can reply on TikTok under Superhero Deep Dive, and you catch me on YouTube under Superhero Deep Dive. Comment, like, subscribe, share if you have any fun facts I may miss, anything about his history, things you like or dislike about the character, ideas for how to handle the character in the future. I am all about it. Let's have a conversation. But let me get into his powers. Now, Justice is a mutant who possesses telekinesis. By using his powers to lift himself, he can levitate and fly at high speeds, and he has shown the ability to hold a large number of people. Initially, Justice telekinesis was limited in its scope, and using them at the peak level of his power would cause him headaches and nosebleeds. However, his powers later increased dramatically, and he is no longer hindered by the physical symptoms he had once suffered from. This is because this dude trains like crazy, just trying to be, and he did it in a really cool way. There have been panels of him not just trying to lift large things or move large things, but also try to be precise with it. He was lifting this giant metal orb for his team to practice with, and as he lifted it, he had to spin it at the same time. So he wasn't just practicing strength, he was practicing control and precision and accuracy. It was awesome. But Vance Astro is a mutant who possesses the psionic ability of psychokinesis, which is the ability to affect matter with his mind. Vance's psionic powers can only be manifested as Psych Blast, focused psychokinetic blasts of explosive concussive force, which can disrupt the synapses in the minds of any living being they strike. He can focus the energy at will, creating anything from a narrow 2-inch diameter beam to a 360-degree expanding sphere of force. Over time, Vance has shown some marginal improvement of the control of his psychokinesis, such as generating small psionic pulses to slow the descent of falling people, or gentle psychic bursts to move objects forwards or backwards, all without inflicting any damage to the people or objects. Vance can only employ his psionic powers at maximum exertion for about half an hour before suffering mental fatigue, after which he must replenish his store of psionic energy. During the time when he carried Captain America's shield in combat, he would use his power to propel the shield and manipulate its flight path, simulating the captain's use of the shield as a throwing weapon. Going by the codename Hollywood, a 1,000-year-old Simon Williams helped to augment all of Astro's ability by a transfusion of Williams' ionically enhanced blood. Astro is often seen wearing a copper alloy bodysuit, which preserved his body on his 1,000-year journey through space and prevents his body from decaying when exposed to air. Vance's dependency on this suit was cured by a spell from Krugar and the blood transfusion from Hollywood, though he still wears a similar full bodysuit to this day. Astro is also an above-average athlete and an excellent hand-to-hand combatant, having received unarmed combat training in the U.S. Air Force during the 20th century. Vance is also an excellent starship pilot and astronaut, and a superb leader and strategist. So this guy he's got it all, basically. I mean, he can do what he needs to do. I'm sorry, I love this character. Fun facts. Vance Astrovik as Justice makes a non-speaking cameo appearance in Fantastic Four as a member of the New Warriors. Vance Astrovik as Justice appears as a non-playable character in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, and Major Vance Astro is added to the board game HeroClix in 2013 after winning a fan poll in 2012. Vance Astro also appears as a playable character in LEGO Marvel Super Heroes 2 as part of the classic Guardians of the Galaxy DLC pack. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they put him here and there. Like, he's been a background character, but he shouldn't be. Let me give you my final thoughts on this. Justice is he was easily one of my top 5 heroes back in the 90s. I was in love with the New Warriors original run, and he was kind of like the leader of it. I know Night Thrasher is said to be the leader, but it's kind of like Night Thrasher was Batman and Justice, or Marvel Boy at the time, was Superman. You know, you'll take orders from both of them, but really, who's the public face? It's gonna be Marvel Boy. It's gonna be Justice. The New Warriors were a teen group, had attitudes, constantly fought amongst themselves, and even dealt with relationship stuff. For instance, Vance was dating Firestar, which was an excellent choice in my opinion, and she offered herself to him, but his morals prevented that simply because he wanted it to be special. He's got Boy Scout morals, and that's something that kind of stuck with me. I was never a scout, but my family is. Like, my wife is actually a district executive in the Scouts. My kids are both Scouts. My daughter is in an all-girls troop in the Scouts. They both have goals of being Eagles at one point. So scouting is a big part of our household, our lives. So I love the morals that he's got. But he was the guy that I believe was set up to be the next Captain America. I mean, just look at him in the future. He's got the shield. But instead, it went to Bucky and then the Falcon. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm not complaining that Sam Wilson is the new Captain America, because I think he deserves it. But I do think that Vance Astrovik or Justice, I think that he got lost in the shuffle with it all. He was a mutant, but he didn't stay with the X-Men. He wanted to be a hero, and he was lined up to be that guy that could be the bridge between the normal hero and the mutant hero. He was that guy that was pushed to the corner and then forgotten about, in my opinion. Overall, Justice is still one of my favorite characters, and he not only has the potential, but I think he has actually the obligation to be one of the biggest potential faces of Marvel Comics. He needs to be rediscovered. He needs a good story. He needs something to push him to that point where he's got to make a choice of, is he going to do what's right and fight forward, or is he gonna cave under pressure and relying on other people? And I'm not saying relying on other people is a bad thing, but as a hero, as someone that needs to take that next step, you have to take those steps on your own. Like, it's a personal thing at that point. He needs to level up, in my opinion. Would he work in the MCU? He might, but I don't think he would, at least right now. I think we need to establish the mutant community, which we've started to, but we need to establish it. We need to bring on the X-Men, stuff like that, and then we need to have something like maybe a TV series where they start finding other mutants, almost kind of like how Heroes was. Like, do you guys remember that show? That show, it used to be awesome, and then it got bad, and then it started to become awesome again, and then it stopped. but he needs to be in something like that. Like that's where I could see him. as far as in the MCU where he could transition from there into something bigger. But what do you guys think? What stories would you have him in? How would you have him develop? Like, he's not the most powerful, but he has learned to do a lot with what he has. And his heart is what takes him forward. But that's my opinion. I want to hear yours. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube under Superhero Deep Dive. If you have requests for future episodes, fun facts I may have missed, your treatment of the character, I would love to hear it. You can also reach me on email with B4itall, so B4itall@yahoo.com. I'm on X and Instagram under Super Deep Dive. I post daily. And I'm on TikTok under Superhero Deep Dive, where I post daily as well. So please help me out, help me grow, help me develop more, so I can be a greater service and we can build the community together. But I think that's going to do it for me today. I hope everyone is blessed. I hope everyone is happy. I hope everyone is safe. I hope everyone is smart. And if you're not smart, don't get caught. See you guys later. Everyone take it easy. Bye-bye.